This is The Guardian.
Hello, I'm Faye Carruthers and welcome to The Guardian Women's Football Weekly. It's as you were in the WSL title race after the international break, with Chelsea, Arsenal and Manchester City all winning. Another 7, this time for Brighton, the first in their history, putting a real dent in Bristol City's survival hopes in a 10-goal thriller. We'll go through all the action from the weekend and preview the League Cup semi-finals and FA Cup quarters as we get to the business end in the hunt for silverware. All that to come, plus we'll take your questions, and that's today's Guardian Women's Football Weekly. Women's Football Weekly is supported by Google Pixel, the only phone engineered by Google, an official mobile phone of Arsenal Football Club, Liverpool Football Club and the England teams. Google Pixel's working with the FA, Arsenal FC and Liverpool FC to close the visibility gap between men's and women's football with the formation of Pixel FC, a collective of next-generation creators and presenters dedicated to covering the women's game. They'll have exclusive access to players, additional resources and content creation opportunities to give women's football the visibility it deserves. Search Google Store to find out more. What a panel we have today. Oh, big smile on your face, Susie Rack, after that positive North London derby. Thanks for turning up today. Thought you might.
It was a very stressful North London derby. It wasn't a very comfortable one.
No, it wasn't. We'll delve into that in a second. I was there. Moyo Abiona, I promise we really do not mean to get you on after a disappointing Manchester United result every single time. It's just they're so frequent this season.
Yeah, that is what it's starting to feel like, to be honest. But I blame them, not you. So,
Oh, I'm really glad. Thank you very much. Chris Legg, lovely to have you back. Not to be for the league double over Arsenal, I'm afraid.
Yeah, not quite so enjoyable this time around, but still a lot of positives to take. I mean, a 1-0 win and only a 1-0 defeat a couple of years ago, you wouldn't have dreamed of that as a Spurs fan heading into a North London derby against Arsenal.
Most definitely. We will go through that game in a minute, but we're going to start with Sunday night's match at King Power Stadium, where it finished Leicester 0, Chelsea 4. Chelsea bouncing back in style from that defeat by Manchester City before the international break. It was a moment of real joy as well. 641 days out. It took Katerina Macário just 6 minutes to then score on her long-awaited debut for Chelsea. She had 20 months out in total with an ACL injury. The smile on her face was absolutely incredible as she stood on the side of the pitch. And what an amazing introduction to the WSL for her, Susie. The icing on the cake for a big win for Chelsea.
Yeah, it was a beautiful moment. Like, hard not to feel a little bit emotional for her because, I mean, you know, you look at some of the quickest players to come back from ACL injuries. Chloe Kelly did it in about 9 months. That's probably as fast as you can do it. But to go 21 months without stepping onto a pitch, like the mental toll that must take, particularly when a move to a big club comes in between it as well. And then you're at your new club. They've spent a lot of money on you and you're not able to sort of reward them for sort of taking a chance on you and that risk. I mean, it just must be a horrific mental roller coaster, right? Like, so for her to come on and score in that fashion so instinctively as well, you must wonder after 21 months whether you've still got it right. Obviously, she's probably been smashing them in training for a good while, and Chelsea have clearly taken their time with when to bring her back and really, really being careful because perhaps of how long she's had out. But to be that instinctive under pressure was phenomenal. Already really liked her as a player when she went to Lyon. I thought that was a bold move and was really excited to see her there. And obviously, you know, her time there was sort of marred by the injury as well. So to actually be at the start of hopefully the best of her is really exciting.
Yeah, it is. She paid special tribute to Emma Hayes after the game, saying Emma's been tremendous. She's been so supportive, not pressuring me to come back, which is really rare. No one wants to come into a club being injured, but I couldn't have asked for a better manager, and I attribute that a lot to her. More testament to her player management skills, Moyo, as if we needed them. But Macário herself could be so important for Chelsea in the run-in. It's just at the right time, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, when we heard the Sam Kerr news, obviously it was like wow, this is a big loss. But I feel like if any team was the most equipped to handle that sort of loss, it was probably Chelsea, just because of the depth they have up front. So Macário coming back is huge. And obviously they were able to get Ramirez as well. So yeah, the timing of it is great as well, because I feel like she's a versatile player. Obviously, we saw when Sam Kerr first got injured that Lauren James was sometimes playing in the 9, sometimes playing in the 10. And I think Macário is someone as well that can play in both of those positions as well as out wide. So I guess it gives them some more versatility in that respect as well.
Yeah, it does. Myra Ramirez also scoring her first WSL goal for the club, Chris, adding to Natalie Bjorn's opener before Johanna Rytting-Kanyard made it 3. It was exactly the response that they needed, actually, wasn't it? To prove they're certainly not letting go of their grip on the title without a fight.
Yeah, I think the quality from Macário and from Ramirez as well, to see the way she took that goal. I mean, Paul Green, the assistant manager, hailed her when she signed. Big price tag, €450,000 when she arrived, and he was hailing her athleticism, her physicality, and she really showed that in that goal. And they're going to need it, aren't they? Although they've got a huge squad, but they're still in all 4 competitions. I think if they were to go all the way in all 4 competitions, I think they've still got something like 17 games they might still have to play. So they've got that quality there. As we mentioned, the absence of Sam Kerr for the injury, and now the news that we'll come on to later that's broken earlier today as well. Kind of that cloud hanging over the club, even though she's going to be out injured. But it's great to see these players coming to the fore, and such an intriguing title race now with the 3 clubs still so fully in it.
Yeah, I'll just remind you of that news, actually. It broke on Monday evening. Chelsea striker and Australia captain Sam Kerr set to face trial after being charged with racially aggravated harassment of a London police officer. She pleaded not guilty to the offence at a court hearing on Monday and is scheduled to appear at Wimbledon Magistrates Court on the 1st of February next year after an alleged incident in January 2023, just in case you missed that news. Let's focus on Leicester, Susie, because we need to give them some credit. Even though the scoreline was dominant in a Chelsea way, they certainly went toe-to-toe with Emma Hayes' side in the first half an hour or so, just kind of undone really by a few moments of quality and some defensive lapses.
Yeah, I mean, they should have taken the lead, really. Rantala's strike, I think perhaps she should have passed it, was a little bit of an error right at the very, very beginning of the match. The thing is like playing against Chelsea is tough, right? Like it's never easy. You want to say that Tybalt should do better against Ramirez as well, but again, she's such a hugely powerful and effective player that most players would struggle when sort of put under pressure by her. So there are moments where they could have done better, but like despite the scoreline, you sort of have to say that the improvement at Leicester is really, really obvious, right? Like there's an identity to the way they play. They do create chances, and if they can just get rid of those little lapses defensively and offensively and make those decisions better, then I think they've got a chance in a game like this. I look at what West Ham have done against Arsenal and then against Man United, and you think Leicester should be doing that a little bit more. Like they have the quality there to be causing that kind of upset, and they're not quite getting there. I don't know, like, is that a confidence thing? Is it like more of a mental thing? They've got the quality to be able to pull off an upset, to grab a point against a big side here and there, not on a regular basis, not with any level of consistency necessarily, but they've got the potential to make that happen. But the thing is the Chelsea machine is just so slick, regardless of who comes in and out of that squad, that they're always going to grind out a result. That's what it feels like. And it's sort of what we said at the start of the season, sort of regardless of the fact that they've got Champions League as well, regardless of, Arsenal's form or City's form or whatever it may be, you would never bet against Chelsea to retain their title because they are such a slick machine.
Yeah, they are. They're back on the top of the table on goal difference. We'll go through Manchester City's win in a second. But thank you for sending in your questions, as always. I've got another quick one for you, Susie. This is from Adam, who sent this in on social media. Are we any closer to finding out Emma Hayes' successor?
No, I've got no idea. I mean, obviously, we know that they want a woman. They've sort of made that fairly clear. But beyond that, who it's going to be, no idea. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one because it's such big shoes to fill. But the thing is, you know, I think we said this before, like you look at, say, when, for the closest example, when Sir Alex Ferguson left Man United and left the team, an ageing team on its way out of sort of the top level. Emma Hayes is leaving a team with Myra Ramirez, newly recruited, Kat Macário coming back to full fitness, a like young, exciting team, a new sort of defensive partnership building with Natalie Bjorn brought in. And like there's a lot of things that you can be happy about as a Chelsea fan and as a incoming Chelsea manager, because your job is being made really, really easy. Plus Paul Green is staying, and I think that's hugely important as well, because then you've got the person at the top that knows the workings, like you could even argue as well or better than Emma. So like you've kind of got every ingredient for immediate success. So it's like the dream job for whoever does come in.
Yeah, that is really key, because a lot of Emma's coaching staff are going with her out to the States. So, you know, having a little bit of stability is really important. OK, so the reason Chelsea are back at the top of the table on goal difference is because they were briefly overtaken on Saturday by Manchester City after their 2-1 win over Everton. Gareth Taylor's side keeping the pressure on their title rivals. And this is quite unbelievable, bearing in mind how we were discussing this team at the start of the season. 12 consecutive victories in all competitions, thanks to goals from the inevitable Bunny Shaw. Lovely curling effort as well from Lauren Hemp. Everton did pull one back through Hannah Bennison on the hour mark. It was an absolute stunner, but to be honest, as we expected, the hosts were completely dominant, never really looked like losing their grip on the game either. And sorry, Moyo, but they just keep picking up win after win after win, and they outclassed Everton all over the pitch.
Yeah, they do, to be honest. I think City look a really good project right now. They look as though everyone sort of understands their role. Obviously, they had the injury with Jill Ward, but it looks like Jess Parker just picked up that number 10 role really nicely with them. I think it helps as well that she's played a lot of her time when she was on loan out wide, because it feels like she has a really good combination with the wide players, understands their runs. They look really good, I'll be honest. They look really good. Their attack looks so clinical. Midfield looks really assured. And then their defence, like, they hardly concede goals. Obviously, it was a banger by Bennison. There wasn't much that anyone could do, but they just hardly concede goals. And that all starts, I think, with Hasegawa deep in midfield. Yeah, they look impressive, and I'm honestly so jealous. I won't lie.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to be jealous. It's an aspiration, isn't it? I mean, look, they're in search for their first title since 2016, and that feels crazy in many ways when you think about what they've done over the years. And after the game, Chris, Gareth Taylor referenced a mentality shift this year particularly. What do you think that can be attributed to?
Well, I was on this show just after they lost to Brighton back in November, and I think that came off the back of that quite disappointing performance in the Arsenal game as well, didn't it? And I don't think any of us then would have thought he'd be signing a new contract as he did yesterday until 2027. But I remember at the time Lauren Hemp was left out of that game, the starting lineup against Brighton, which I found really surprising. She's started every game since, certainly every WSL game since. They've won all 9 since that Brighton defeat. They've won all 12, as you say, in every competition since then. So, I mean, maybe it was the kick that they needed at the time, that they can't take any game for granted, and they have had that. I mean, I liked his comments after the game on Saturday. He was like, it's just all about winning now. Yeah, okay, we haven't added to our goal difference today, but that really isn't the priority. We've just got to keep getting the points in the bag, and that mentality seems to be there right throughout the team. They are just a machine at the moment.
Yeah, it's impressive to watch. I remember that pod really vividly as well, because I thought, oh dear, I feel as if we're massively sticking the boot into Gareth Taylor, and he's turned things around despite people not being entirely convinced about what he was doing. This is what he had to say after he signed that 3-year deal. Very happy to be able to commit to City for another 3 seasons. I think what we're doing here and trying to achieve is a build and a long-term project of sustainability and success. Our ambition was always to be right at the top, and we've done that. It's taken a lot of hard work from a lot of people behind the scenes. The players have really brought into what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve. I mean, we'll preview the League Cup semi-finals properly in part 2, Susie, but with that game between City and Chelsea on Thursday night, it could potentially be a marker for what we can expect in the run-in with just 7 games in the league left.
Oh, yes, absolutely delicious tie, right? Like, they're always classic ties at Chelsea City, and we've sort of become a little bit bored of them, I want to say, in particular, in cup semi-finals in particular. But I think at the moment where you've got this transition period at Chelsea, which one of the best things about Em Hayes, right, is like that she's managed to maintain winning whenever the team is in a transition period, which is really exciting for me. But you've got that team that is sort of in this transition where you've got a few new players, particularly those leading the line, like coming in, versus a team that is just sort of relentlessly good at the moment, and who have such incredible attacking width with Hemp and Kelly that makes it really, really exciting. Obviously, Arsenal have still got to play Chelsea and City in the league, so that makes it a little bit more tasty as well. But I was surprised that Gareth Taylor was given a 3-year deal. That's a real statement of support from the club as a whole, and we don't really see deals of that length in women's football just generally, right? Like, it's usually much shorter term than that. Obviously, managers usually get a bit more, but a 3-year deal when that, you know, there have been question marks, there's not been a huge number of trophies, and they've not put together a season where they've competed on all fronts under him. They're the, you know, warning signs for me. Like, next season when they are back in the Champions League, as they undoubtedly will be, you know, if they don't get through qualifying again, are they going to regret that contract? I mean, you would expect them to get through qualifying, right? Like, you would expect it. That, you know, the players are going, most of the players, lots of England and Team GB players in that side, they've not got a major tournament this summer with the Olympics. Obviously, they've got a few Nations League games and things like that, but their record under Gareth Taylor in the Champions League qualifying has not been great. And even if they get through that and get to a group stage, it's been a long time since they were in a group stage, and experience really matters in the Champions League. So I wonder if they'll come to regret the length of the deal. Maybe they won't. Maybe they all love him and he's doing a brilliant job, but it feels a little premature for that length for me.
Well, they always keep people within the City group in some way, don't they? So I wonder if that's what they've got in mind. Let's move on to Arsenal. Top 3 all winning this weekend. But as you said, Susie, slightly stressful maybe at the Emirates. But title hopes are still alive. It was a narrow 1-0 win over Tottenham, and it felt like we were in for a case of deja vu after a really cagey first half. Spurs pretty able to contain the side of our side, it felt. Actually had the better chances, arguably. They hit the post at one point as well, didn't they? But Alessia Russo's goal 4 minutes after the break was enough to secure all 3 points for Arsenal. It wasn't pretty, but it was in front of another sellout crowd, Susie. Back-to-back sellout crowds now at the Emirates. But it was the 3 points, really, that mattered to keep them in touching distance.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the crowd's hugely impressive, right? Like, to do it back-to-back and to have an average attendance that is better than some Premier League sides this season so far is incredible, and shows what can be achieved when you engage your fan base in a really, like, genuine way as well. But, like, yeah, I mean, they need to start delivering on the pitch for these new fans. And I mean, I thought Tottenham were brilliant. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. They're so well organised. Robert Villaham is like such a likable guy and clearly excellent manager. You know, the way he's closed them up defensively and got them playing in such a short space of time is hugely impressive. I mean, the fact that it was, I want to say 5-0 and 4-1, or the other way around it might be, last season across the 2 games against Arsenal, and this year they've won 1-0 and lost 1-0 and had the 3-3 draw in the Conti Cup. Just like an incredible shift in momentum in this fixture. Like, it's become a derby. Before it was like, you know, a sure thing for Arsenal. I remember how many years ago, 6-7 years ago, when they lost 10-0 to Arsenal in the FA Cup. Like, how tight these games are now and how much Spurs can get from them is just a huge testament to what the club have achieved as a whole, but what he's done in this year is just, yeah, remarkable. I felt a bit sorry for them because, you know, I think they maybe deserved a point for that performance, but Arsenal desperately seeking some more clinical finishing against a low block and finding the way through. In a way, it's slightly alarming that it's Kim Little that finds the pass that is going to eventually unlock that that really, really low block because she's not going to be around forever. So who is there that's going to step in and sort of take that mantle? I enjoyed Catherine Cole at Everton and thought, maybe she's the one. But I worry that we're still reliant on the brilliance of Kim Little to find the little breakthrough that makes a difference in a game like that.
Well, she is one of those players that can just turn a game, though, isn't she? But from a Tottenham perspective, Chris, you're still sixth. It is 4 without a win, and that 6-point gap has kind of opened up between you and Manchester United and Liverpool. But it's still massive progress on last season. But because of that progress, do you feel as if the team are going to be a little bit disappointed that they've dropped off after such a bright start?
Maybe, yeah, if you look at that as a run of 4 games without a win. But I think, as Susie was saying there, it's great to hear even Susie, as an Arsenal fan, saying she felt sorry for us. We don't need your pity, Susie. Like Susie said, it's a derby now. I mean, and it was, and we wanted to all big it up a couple of years ago because we need those kind of games. But now it truly is. To have seen Tottenham take on Arsenal at that level twice and go toe-to-toe with them at a sold-out Emirates as well. I mean, that's incredible. So Spurs have taken huge leaps forward this season. Robert Villaham, you do fear that it might only be 2 or 3 years before a top club comes calling. You wonder if he'd have had another season under his belt, whether he would be a prospect for the Chelsea job, but he doesn't have enough WSL experience right now. It might prove to be a flash in the pan. You know, we were singing Carla Ward's praises last year, and I'm sure that Villa can probably come back and have a better season than they have this time round. But we can't judge it all on this, but the strides that they have taken, the quality that's in that side now, you know, Grace Clinton, okay, she's only on loan, but what a season. I love what I've seen from Bizet on the other side of midfield and in a more attacking role. Martha Thomas started the season so well. I guess we're still hoping that Bethany England's going to get back to what she showed last season. She missed the first half of this season with the hip injury. And Tottenham are playing a different way now, so she doesn't quite have the same role that she had. But there's so much talent there now. We are moving to the next level with Tottenham, and I feel there's so much to be optimistic about.
If I'm Robert Villaham, I'm like doing everything in my power to make Grace Clinton never want to leave and to prize her away from. I mean, it would be very, very difficult to prize her away from Man United, like after the season she's had. But I am like spending the entire rest of the season tapping her up like no tomorrow and promising her the world to get her to stay, because what a player. She's the kind of player that you would build this Spurs team around going forward. Like, so unlikely that I'll get to keep her, but I would love to see her stay at a club like that and have the impact that she's having like long term. That'd be really exciting.
What's that going to depend on, Moyo, do you think? Some kind of plan at Manchester United? What investment's going to come in?
There's no plan, I can assure you. And I think if Mark Skinner's still there, I think she's gone. I think it will be like how Kirsty Hansen was at Villa last season, had a great season last season, was near the top of the assist table, and then was like, yeah, I'm trying to stay at Villa right now. And I think it's kind of tough when you know that the place you're right now, you're assured games, you're assured starts. And like, as soon as you move from that level, you're not assured anything, basically. So I guess it's tough. And if I were her, I'd actually consider staying at Spurs. Obviously, selfishly, I want her to come back to United, but it is such a good prospect at Spurs. And United have been so bad this season that the gap between us and Spurs is not even as big as what, you know. Is it that much of a level up? Who knows at this point?
That's exactly what I was about to say. They're on par, really.
Yeah.
The problem is like Skinner, if he stays, he's made it very, very clear that his midfield is immovable. So Katie Sellerman is captain, he's not dropping her. Ella Toone, he's not dropping. Hayley Ladd, he's not dropping. That's it.
It's literally one spot right now in that 8 between Lisa Nelson, Hayley Ladd, Miyazawa, and then Grace Clinton is getting joined to that group.
Well, I mean, look, we're going to talk Manchester United in a second, but frustrating, as you can tell from Moyo, our Manchester United fan. By the way, just putting it back onto Arsenal, and I've got a quick question that's been sent in to us as well. Arsenal actually travel to Stamford Bridge next up in the WSL after the break for the FA Cup. That one's under the lights on a Friday night, which is quite exciting. So actually, Arsenal have away trips at both Chelsea and Manchester City to come. So it's going to be really interesting and could turn the title race on its head yet again if they get anything out of either of those games. But I just want to focus on the crowd. Stick your hand up if you want to answer this. It's from Nolly. Do you ever see a point in which men's and women's schedules will be coordinated to enable A, bigger crowds with fans not having to choose from matches at the same time, and B, teams to play more regularly at the bigger stadia? I knew Susie Rack's hand would go straight up for that.
I mean, I wish, I'd love to see that level of coordination and, working together, collaboration, every word you can imagine for any kind of linking up between the two. But it's never going to happen. It should happen. And I wish there was a drive to make it happen and to make it that it has to happen and that you can't avoid it happening. But, and I don't know, does the football regulator or something have the power to do that? Maybe. But I still don't think it will happen. You look at, say, the drive, there was a big push from the Women's Super League and Nikki Doucette, the new CEO of the Women's Super League, new entity that is going to go independent as of next season, to try and get the 3 p.m. Saturday TV slot made available for women's football and sort of removed from the blackout. And that was stamped out by the Premier League and Premier League clubs. They don't want to help, they're actively blocking the development of the Women's Super League as a really sort of, financially viable independent league, because if it comes at a price to their attendances, viewing figures, finances in any way, they are not going to do it. And any threat to the status quo of dominance that they have at the top is not going to be tolerated. So the idea of them deigning to shift a match here or there for the women's team is just not going to happen. You might get it on a club by club basis. Arsenal might strategically work their fixtures at the Emirates so that both teams can play there even more regularly or whatever. But I just across the whole, you're just not going to see it. And I wish you would, because it's crap and short-sighted.
Yeah. Well, by the way, you mentioned the Newco there and Nikki Doucette. The women's professional game confirmed on Monday that Dawn Airy is going to continue as chair of the Barclays Women's Super League and Barclays Women's Championship Board. So kind of transitioning into the same role within the Newco, as it's called at the moment, with both leagues becoming an independent body this summer. So there is at least some continuity in those kind of fights, if you like. I think that's maybe too harsh a phrase to use. Those discussions, debates, etc. will continue because of that. Right, that's it for part one. In part two, we'll round up the rest of the weekend's WSL results and look ahead to the midweek Conti Cup semi-finals. Welcome back to part two of the Guardian Women's Football Weekly. Let's just take you through the rest of the weekend's WSL results. Close your ears, Moyo. Speaking of dropping off, Manchester United dropping yet more points, conceding an 85th minute Vivian Asai equaliser to be held 1-1 at West Ham. Rachel Williams had given the visitors the lead after just 4 minutes, but the Hammers grew into the game, got the late goal for their efforts in some style as well. It means that United's hopes of European football, I have to say, look all but over. 9 points adrift of the top three now. Please give us more of your thoughts on Manchester United, Moyo, if you can quite cope with it.
I'll be honest, I think that Rachel Williams still being on at the 90 whatever minute it was that she missed that open goal was just tempting fate. Let's be real. She normally comes on at the end and you started her. So I think 60th minute, she should no longer have been on the pitch. I think he was getting greedy and she should not have been on the pitch anymore. And we got punished as a result of that. The subs just made no sense. The whole front line had 3 strikers starting. Yes, we have injuries, but I just feel like he's so tactically rigid. There's nothing we can do to break the rut. With the fullback injuries we've had, I would have gone to a 3 at the back ages ago. But I don't know if he trusts his ability to implement that. So I think we're just sticking with a 4-2-3-1, which doesn't make sense right now, especially because it's random people playing at fullback right now. Like 1 week it's a left winger in Leah Golton, 1 week is Gemma Evans, who absolutely does not want to play there. And it's just getting frustrating, to be honest, because it feels like we're not utilising what we have. I don't think United's squad can compete or compare with the 3 above us. But if you're trying to tell me that we need a Chelsea level squad to compete with some of the teams that we've dropped points with this season, then I don't believe you, unfortunately. So yeah, I don't believe in this project. I don't know if the players believe in the project. I don't think that Mark Skinner knows what the project is. And I think right now he's just trying to buy time and hope that he can get, just keep adding more players. But right now it doesn't feel like there's a structure in place, even with the players we're getting. I think that's my main issue. Just loads of 8s and that's it.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's not going to be any more obvious at the moment because their head of women's football, Polly Bancroft, is going to a men's League 2 side in Grimsby at the end of the season. So it feels as if they're a little bit directionless at the moment. Just 2 wins in their last 5 league games as well, Susie. To say it's been a difficult start to 2024 is an understatement, really.
Yeah, I mean, hugely disappointing. The thing is right, like, you can look across Man United and you can say that, their problems don't just lie with the managers. There's clearly deep ingrained problems. There's been high staff turnover around them. I've not heard great things about dealing with them player-wise when it comes to, agents dealing with them over their players moving or arriving. So, nothing is going quite right. But then, in addition to that, you've got Mark Skinner, who is not engendering a lot of trust amongst players. If you're a player arriving at Man United, are you going to play? There are now too many players that have come in and have had a really tough time, either with minutes or lack of rotation, whatever it may be, and have left unhappy, that you've got to start thinking that he could be a barrier to recruitment on that basis. And so, as much as I think that, I think he's actually a really genuinely nice guy and did a brilliant job at Birmingham and was really turning things around in Orlando, it's reaching a point at United where he is actively becoming a bit of a block on their ability to recruit and retain players. And that's a worry. If you're Grace Clinton and you've just joined Man United, but you spent the season on loan at Spurs, and yeah, that may have been the plan from the start that you were going to go out on loan, but you want to be coming back to Man United, having broken into the England team, having had the season you've had, hoping that you are going to get some decent minutes, and you can't guarantee that by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, it's unlikely. And so that's a worry. You need a manager that is going to make you feel like you are valued and you are part of this squad, and this squad is going to be used and lent on across the course of a season, and you don't get that impression at the moment. So whilst I don't think the blame is entirely at Mark Skinner's door, I think he is a problem as well.
So in that case, MCWFC Girls in Blue asked, I'm assuming a Manchester City fan, if Mark Skinner goes at the end of the season, who could replace him? Might Melissa Phillips be a good fit?
Who knows, right? There's such a dearth of top quality managers out there. We had Mark Parsons on the podcast last week. He's a very good club manager, as we saw at Portland. He could be an option. But in terms of, Melissa Phillips, again, showed she was very good, but also a club of Man United size, unproven. I've said it on the pod for the past few weeks, there are so few top-level managers available.
That's a problem, isn't it? After such a difficult start to the season, West Ham, though, really starting to look like a dangerous outfit. Asai in great form, squad growing in confidence week on week as well. So Rianne Skinner's finally managing to get her methods into the players, which is brilliant. We need to turn to the small matter of 10 goals at Ashton Gate next, though. It finished Bristol City 3, Brighton 7. Let me just give you a kind of overview of what happened. This is kind of Brighton ahead, 2-0, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, 4-3, 7-3. It's just bonkers. 9 different goal scorers, all sorts of chaos. Brighton ultimately romping to victory, but a win would have taken Lauren Smith's side to within 2 points of Brighton, but despite rallying, they scored 3 late goals, puts a gloss on the scoreline, Brighton, and leave the home side 6 points from safety at the bottom of the table. You were there, Chris, commentating on it. I mean, God, I wish I'd been able to wish you luck beforehand, but nobody would have predicted this kind of scoreline. But what we did predict is that it was pretty much a must-win for Bristol City if they wanted to have any hopes of surviving.
Yeah, it's one of the craziest games I've ever worked on. I mean, as a neutral, absolutely enthralling to watch. Hard to make sense of it. And yeah, I mean, until the 89th minute when Madison Haley put Brighton 5-3 up, you felt like Bristol City was still going to get a point out of it because they'd staged that amazing comeback from 4-1 to 4-3. In fact, even after that Brighton 5th goal, they put up 10 minutes of added time. So you thought there's actually still time because we'd had 2 spells in the game where 2 goals was scored in the space of 3 minutes. That had happened twice. So you're like, Bristol City could still get a 5-5 here, but yeah, they've ended up heartbreakingly from their perspective losing 7-3. And I do think that's probably the result that's going to send them down, because I felt before Christmas that they still had a chance, but they've lost to West Ham since Christmas. They've lost heavily to Brighton. They shipped 5 to Leicester, didn't they, the other week? So they've let in 12 goals in 2 games against teams that are kind of should be within their reach as such. So I think Lauren Smith said after the game too, things that were working really well have started to fall apart. Like they're not defending well from corners and set pieces anymore. They did miss Naomi Lazelle, who's been a rock at the back, and obviously she got called up to train with the England senior team during that camp in Spain. But unfortunately, she picked up a hamstring injury during that trip, so she had to miss out the weekend, and she was a big miss, a big loss for them. But yeah, there's so much that I like that I've seen from Bristol City this season under Lauren Smith, and so many of the young players coming through. But this is the problem with relegation. I mean, I'm a fan of it. I think you need promotion and relegation, but it doesn't give teams much chance. Like they need more chance to really transition. And there is still a really big gulf between the WSL and the Championship, and it's really hard to come up and stay up and then look to build. Like Liverpool have done brilliantly, but Bristol City don't have that level of resource. And I feel for them, but I think it's going to be too much for them now to bridge this 6-point gap as it is now to West Ham.
Oh, they've conceded 45 goals this season. You can't do that and expect to stay in the WSL. It was a massive 3 points for Brighton, though, particularly after all the uncertainty in recent weeks following the departure of Melissa Phillips. Let's talk Liverpool, shall we, and Aston Villa. Liverpool took advantage of Manchester United's draw at West Ham. They're level on points now with United. It was a 4-1 win for them at Aston Villa in the end. Emma Coavisto scoring a second-half brace, adding to the first-half goals from Grace Fisk and Sophie Roman-Hogg. The conditions weren't great. I mean, they weren't great anywhere this weekend, were they? But particularly at the Bescot, it was pretty grim. And without Adriana Leon away on international duty and Rachel Daly serving the last of her 3-match suspension, Villa really struggled, didn't they, Moyo? And they were made to pay, ultimately.
Yeah, it was unfortunate they were missing probably their 2 best attackers right now. I thought Liverpool were clinical, to be honest. I think that in this game, like they haven't been in necessarily all the other games, but I feel like in this game specifically, it felt like the chances they were getting, the good chances, they were pretty much putting them away. And Villa didn't have anyone that could be able to respond in the same way because of the absences. Liverpool look good, to be honest. They look like they've taken a big stride from last year, whereas Villa kind of look like they've added to the team. We know they added a lot of players last season, especially in midfield. And then they added some attackers, but I don't think the new attackers they brought other than Adriana Leon have really gelled yet with the team. And I think they're waiting as well for like Kirsty Hansen to sort of regain the form that she had last season. Yeah, it's quite tricky right now. We've seen a lot of movement with their team this year. Like we've seen Mas Pacheco on the bench a lot this year, as opposed to last year where she was pretty much playing every game. And I think those sort of combinations plus injuries haven't helped.
Yeah, Liverpool, though, have been brilliant. You mentioned Villa there, disappointing at home. They've won just 1 of their 7 games at the Bescot this season. Perhaps not the best preparation to travel to Arsenal in the League Cup in midweek. But Liverpool are having a really good season under Matt Beard. And I feel as if they're going to be as frustrated almost as Tottenham, Susie, in terms of, such good form at the beginning of the season and just had that little dip in the middle.
Oh, yeah. Like infuriating, right? Like the biggest problem with any team trying to challenge is sort of the middle of the park and to be the best of the rest, for want of a less cliched term, is consistency. No team has really managed it, be outside the top 3 across the course of a season to the level that you would hope for. I mean, one of the things that I think just harking back to the discussion we were having before this about Man United and Mark Skinner, and you look at, say, a Matt Beard, and if you're a player looking for somewhere to go that is showing serious signs of progress and is like you've got a chance of playing in, you've got a chance of having an impact in, you feel like the manager is doing a good job in, I mean, you would arguably go to either Liverpool or Aston Villa ahead of Man United, regardless of Aston Villa's current form. And that's a, like, yeah, I'm switching back to Man United chat now, but like a damning indictment of Man United, but also a testament to the work of Matt Beard and Carla Ward, actually, because even though they've had a terrible season by all accounts on the basis of their campaign last season, it is notoriously difficult to be successful across the course of the season. It is notoriously difficult to have a high turnover in your team to try and break into the top and then maintain a level of sort of impact. And I actually think Robert Villaham, after the Arsenal game, like in the press conference, he spoke really, really well about how much time it takes for you to build a team that is going to be competitive and to close the gap on the top three. And he was like, this isn't going to be a consistent thing. This isn't going to be a like next season we're going to beat them over 2 games and, you know, be really challenging at the top and be in the Champions League. He was like, this is like a 3-4 year thing. Like, you need time to develop a team, a squad, players, build them up and stuff. So yeah, like, yes, the dip in form, but like every team in that middle pack has that at some point at this stage while they're trying to still, they're all still baby teams. They're all still in their infancy in the Women's Super League, relatively speaking. Like, the managers are all still relatively new in their tenures. Like, none of them have the longevity of a Gareth Taylor or Emma Hayes and have been able to build a squad with unlimited budgets and top level players. So like, that's sort of inevitable. So yeah, you kick yourself about dips in form mid-season, but at the same time, they've not had the time or resources to be able to build that level of consistency yet. That was a really long answer, and I can see the daggers coming out of Faye's eyes.
I'm like, quick one on this. I always say that. I give you the chance and you just can't. But that is because you're passionate, and it was a really brilliant answer, actually, Susie, because it encompassed exactly what this season has been like for those challenging. And this is what we're hoping the WSL is going to do going forward, is that those in the middle of the park are actually going to be genuine title contenders eventually. It just takes time, doesn't it? In the Championship, it was a rain-affected weekend. Crystal Palace, Birmingham and Watford Charlton both postponed because of waterlogged pitches. Sunderland then took advantage. It was a narrow 1-0 win for them over fellow promotion chasers Southampton. Mary McAteer's 49th minute strike sealing all 3 points for them, and it means that the lasses are 4 points clear of Crystal Palace, Southampton and Charlton, who all sit on 30 points. But do not forget, Palace and Charlton both have 2 games in hand, very importantly. Down at the bottom, big wins for London City Lionesses, who beat fellow strugglers Reading 2-1. Lewis gave themselves hope of avoiding relegation, courtesy of Maria Farrugia brace in the 2-1 win over Sheffield United. Couple of bits of big news, actually. Firstly, the wonderful Maggie Murphy, who's been in charge at Lewis FC since its inception, really. She's announced that she's leaving the club at the end of the season, which is going to be a huge miss for them. And some big news out of London City Lionesses on Saturday as well. It was announced Remy Allen's been named head coach until the end of the season. So her player coach contract at Birmingham was terminated by mutual agreement as a result. You'll of course remember her from Reading, Leicester City and Aston Villa. Brilliant midfielder. But she's been England under-23's assistant coach since October 23 and is a really good acquisition, I think, Chris, for the Pride.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they look to be building something a couple of seasons back, didn't they? And they've had too much of a turnover of coaches. Mel Phillips did a great job there before she headed off to the US and then came back to Brighton and wasn't at Brighton, sadly, for too long either. So London City Lionesses, when they broke away from the entity of Millwall, they wanted to go it alone as a women's club. They didn't want to be tied to the sponsorship deals that Millwall was sorting out, kind of mainly through the men's club. And it seemed like a really brave, bold, some people thought reckless, maybe foolish move. But, you know, it's been a difficult season for them this time round. But Remy Allen's going to bring so much great experience to the club that you would like to think she's got the ability to turn things well. And that's a club I'm really intrigued to see how they do as the Championship becomes more and more of a mirror of really the WSL, and clubs there really need to be tied to men's clubs that are doing pretty well, or in the upper echelons of the professional men's games. It's great that we do still have clubs like Durham, like London City Lionesses, like Lewis that you mentioned a few moments ago as well. It just adds to the tapestry. It gives a different identity to that division. What an enthralling division it's been this season. And that title race that you mentioned with the four clubs, really, Sunderland, Palace, Southampton, Charlton, Birmingham, only 4 points further back than those three who are just behind Sunderland. So next few weeks are going to be fascinating to watch in the Championship.
Oh, it's been brilliant all season, the Championship, hasn't it? Now, as we teased ahead to earlier, we've reached the semi-final stage of the Conti Cup. Real shame, actually, that no Championship sides are in this. But the final is going to be held at Wolves Molineux Stadium on the 31st of March. It's going to be contested between either Arsenal and Aston Villa, who play on Wednesday, or Manchester City and Chelsea, who face off on Thursday. What do you reckon, Moyo? How do you see these two semi-finals playing out?
I think Arsenal get a comfortable win against Villa. The Chelsea City one, it can go, I'm not sure, because a lot of the time we see draws from them. We see like 2-2s, we see like 1-1s, but like obviously someone has to win this game. So maybe just because I rarely ever see Chelsea lose semis, I'll go with Chelsea. But like in terms of form, City will, yeah, I'd expect them to win, but I won't be shocked if Chelsea win, basically.
Basically, you've just sat on the fence, you've got yourself some splinters in your backside as a result, and you've told us nothing.
Okay, Arsenal, Chelsea, done.
Okay, thank you. That's better. Speaking of cups, the quarterfinals of the FA Cup take place this weekend. Saturday it's Liverpool, Leicester and Brighton, Manchester United, and Sunday Everton, Chelsea and Tottenham, Manchester City. It's a competition you take a keen interest in. Chris, what's the standout tie for you?
Well, from a biased Tottenham perspective, Tottenham, Man City, because maybe they have a chance, Tottenham, because I know we lost 7-0 to Man City last time out, so that's not great, but we're at home. A great season under Robert Villaham. I think they'll get a pretty decent crowd down at Brisbane Road. Tottenham, a club that is tied so much to FA Cup tradition through the men's side, and there hasn't been any FA Cup success since 1991 on the men's side. I would love to see Tottenham women get to an FA Cup semi-final. I think there would be so much wider interest around that tie. But yeah, Man City do just look like a winning machine at the moment. So maybe I'm just dreaming there. But that's obviously the tie that stands out to me. Brighton, Man U. Brighton got to the semi-finals a couple of seasons back. They're coming off the back of that amazing result against Bristol City. That's going to breathe a real feel-good factor around the club. But Manchester United, Mark Skinner, he got to the final of this competition last season. It gives him a bit of something to kind of push back on. If he could get them to the final again, the critics are growing against him. Well, I think we saw more banners with Skinner out at the weekend than we've seen before. But this competition might just give him some respite, because obviously Champions League qualification looks beyond them now. If he can get through to another final, then it might just give him, a bit of breathing space and hope for him that he can stay on for another season.
You can dream. That's what the FA Cup's all about. It's magic. Sprinkle, sprinkle. All the fairy dust. Let's let Susie bask in the glory of her Spanish getaway for a little bit longer. We should round up the Lionesses' 5-1 win over Italy last week. It was obviously after that very comfortable victory, 7-2 romp against Austria. What were your main takeaways, Susie? Did we actually learn anything in this camp?
Yeah, a lot. What was really exciting for me was that so many players were played and so many changes were made to starting lineups. I was just so delighted to see Lotte Wubben-Moy get a first start in a very, very, very long time. I think since 2022 or something, in the second game against Italy, and 45 minutes in the first game against Austria as well. Grace Clinton, obviously a huge highlight. There were just starting to be answers to questions about like who fills in various positions that made me quite happy. I thought Maya Letitia had a really good game in the first one, right back, like potential future deputy for Lucy Bronze, which is an important position. I thought Niamh Charles had a really good go at left back, and again it's like the fullback positions have been really, really light on the ground. So it's been a while since we've had some time ahead of the next major international tournament and competitive fixtures where Sarina Wiegman has been able to experiment a little bit and give minutes to players and start to do a little bit of that squad development that's been needed. And here we saw it. And the most impressive thing was that they did that, but was still completely fluid in possession, play, attack. Like, there was no dip when these changes were made or when there were a load of substitutions or whatever. And that was, like, for me, the most exciting part is the maintenance of that, like, form and consistency.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to find out later on the draw for Euro 2025 taking place Tuesday, just after we've recorded, and we'll assess England's opponents in next week's show. But I just need to remind you what happened. Spain adding to their trophy cabinet, beating France 2-0 in the Nations League final. Goals from Aitana Bonmatí and Mariona Caldente. The Ballon d'Or winner said afterwards, "It's quite incredible, everything we've achieved. This team has no ceiling. World Cup, now Nations League, and now for the Olympics." Massive congratulations to them, by the way. The first time they've ever reached the Olympics, which I hadn't realised, that had completely passed me by. The Nations League has been really interesting, I would say, over this past season, and it's going to be fascinating to see who everybody draws for the Euro 2025 qualifiers. Right, it's been a pleasure as always. Chris, take care of yourself. I'll keep my fingers crossed for your Spurs magic at the weekend.
We will keep dreaming. Yes, get your support behind us, Faye. Cheer on Spurs. Like, come, even you can do it this weekend.
I'm sorry, I can't. But dream big, Moyo. Dream big. You need to.
Yeah, I do need to be honest. Thanks, Faye.
Susie Rack, always an absolute delight to see you. I will see you very soon.
Yeah. What next event? I don't know. We haven't seen each other enough lately.
I know. Well, I thought I was going to pop down and see you at the Emirates, and then I didn't get a chance. But maybe I'll see you at Stamford Bridge.
Yes,
or before.
Stamford Bridge.
Oh, you got very excited. I feel really privileged by that excitement you gave. I'll see you. Well, that's still ages away. I'll see you for a coffee before then. We hope you enjoyed our NWSL season preview special last week. It is, of course, still available to listen to if you missed it. That season kicks off in a couple of weeks' time. Our regular parish notice that you can get involved in the show by sending us your questions via X or emailing us at womensfootballweekly@theguardian.com is inserted right here. Be sure to sign up as well for our bi-weekly women's football newsletter. All you need to do is search Moving the Goalposts, sign up. Plenty to look forward to this week. On Tuesday's edition, Sudesh Benaya tells the incredible story of Sabitra Bandari, who's become the first ever Nepalese footballer to play in the European top flight. And on Thursday, Osasu Obiwani takes us inside how Rachel Kundananji became the most expensive women's player in the world. Fascinating. Make sure you download it. And I just want to say before we go, a massive thank you to producer Lucy for some sterling work on the pod. She's leaving us for pastures new and we're going to miss her massively. Good luck, Lucy Oliver. The Guardian Women's Football Weekly was produced by the wonderful Lucy Oliver. Music composition was by Laura Iredale. Our executive producer is Sal Ahmat. Women's Football Weekly is supported by Google Pixel, the only phone engineered by Google and official mobile phone of Arsenal Football Club, Liverpool Football Club and the England teams. Engineered by Google, the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro are fast and secure with the most advanced Pixel cameras yet. And Google AI powers amazing features for photos and video so you can get even closer to the game. Search Google Store to find out more.
This is The Guardian.